Have you ever noticed someone slowly mirroring your life, trying to dress, trying to act like you? They are slowly starting to live like you. They want to copy everything you do, like someone is slowly becoming you. Not just inspired by you, but copying your choices, copying your style, and even going as far as copying your goals. At first, it might seem like that's just an admiration. It might feel subtle. You might feel this, it is okay. But over time, it can start to feel uncomfortable and even evasive. In Life Wisdom today, we're going to explore what happens when admiration turns into imitation and how to respond without losing your peace or your identity or even your sense of control, because it can be frustrating. Your life isn't something to be replicated. It is something to be lived by you, and you just want to do that. When people around us try to look like us, very often we don't care. When they choose to pick up maybe your style or your habits or even your interest, you may feel like, oh, you're just inspiring them. You could be an influencer. You're inspiring others with your lifestyle. But then something changes when you notice that someone is working really hard to become, and it becomes more consistent. It becomes more specific. And suddenly, it doesn't feel like inspiration anymore. It feels like an imitation, and a dangerous one. They try to act like you. They act like they are monitoring spirits, destiny swappers in your life. They want to have your life, gathering information to mirror your style, your manners, your activities, even how you speak. They even try to be friends with your own friends. They try to visit places that you go to. They act like you. They want to do everything like you. And that feeling can be hard to explain. Because there is a difference between inspiration and imitation. Let's talk about that. Inspiration feels natural. It allows space for individuality. But imitation feels repetitive and invasive, specific, almost like someone is following a script of your life that wasn't written for them. You start to notice patterns, small ones, the same interest, the same decisions, the same directions. Even try to speak like you. I have known somebody that does that. And this is not from coincidence. You may go from confidence to something more intentional. And that's where the problem begins. Because it's not just about what they are doing. It's about how it feels to you. You begin to feel like your space is being entered. You feel invaded without your permission. Like something personal is being replicated. And many people, other people don't notice it. It's mostly you. And that creates tension. Very often, those who mirror others don't yet fully know themselves. Or they don't love themselves. But most often, this is done out of jealousy and envy and low self-esteem. Because of the low self-esteem, They don't like who they are. And so instead of building their own identity, they want to borrow someone they admire. They observe what works for you, and they try to recreate it. This is even dangerous when you will see a sister trying to be like the brother's wife, or you will see a friend trying to be like the brother's friends or the sister's friends. And this comes from not fully knowing who they are or trusting where they are going to. So instead of building something new, they follow something that already exists, something that seems to be working, because creating their own path can feel overwhelming. It requires trial and error, uncertainty, time. And for some people, that feels too risky. So they look for a shortcut, a model to follow, a life that seems proven, so they don't have to work hard. And that's you. So they copy you and even try to destiny swap. But what they don't see is everything behind it. The hard work. They fail to see the mistakes that got you there. They fail to see the growth, the process you had to go through to become who you are today. And that's where it becomes a problem. Because they're trying to mirror somebody they don't even understand. Because a life built on imitation isn't stable. It works until something changes, until a challenge comes that requires personal understanding. And then they can't even tell who they are. But for you, on the other hand, it can feel draining. It feels draining because of that feeling of being watched. You feel like your life is being studied. You might feel uncomfortable. You might feel like something personal is being repeated, is being taken away from you. And over time, that awareness changes how you show up. That's when boundaries matter. At this point, you need not to push people away, but to protect what's yours. Set those boundaries. You might even try to talk about it. But it's difficult to talk about this because only you know someone is copying you. It's not always obvious enough to clearly explain. Because the more attention you give to it, the more it distracts you even more. And when it is obvious, you just know this. And sometimes you are met with confusion or even denial. So why even confront? So you have to come back to yourself. You have to come back to your sense of direction, your pace and your path. That's where you need to put the line, not as a punishment, but as protection. Set those boundaries. Because everything in your life needs to be, not everything in your life needs to be visible, and not everything needs to be shared. People who try to mimic others are dangerous. And this obsession can lead to painful endings. When you start sharing less, you create space. Space for your ideas to grow. without interference, space to exist without being mirrored. Because the truth is, someone can copy what you do, but they can't copy why you do it. They can't replicate your experiences, your perspectives, your depths. And at the end of the day, what makes your life yours can't be copied and shouldn't be copied. Not your experiences, not your mindset, not the way you think, not even the way you dress. So I invite you to shift the focus from watching them, stop watching them, back to yourself, back to what feels real, back to what's yours, and start rebuilding your trust. And in that shift, you not only build something stronger, you're going to be trusting in your own path. Your confidence in your identity becomes very important, and you create a sense of grounding that isn't affected by imitation, copycats, or destiny thieves. So, my dear friends, to close today's reflection, not everyone who admires you understands you. Some people who admire you are just destiny swappers, thieves who try to copy you. They can never become you. Your life isn't something to be duplicated. So it's something to be lived fully. And you are living your life fully and privately by you. So if someone tries very hard to mirror you, avoid them and do everything to stay away from them. They know what they're doing. Such envy can become an obsession, which can be dangerous. Do not allow them to destroy you. If this reflection spoke to you, take a moment and sit with it. Growth doesn't happen in noise. It happens in awareness. Be aware. Please share your thoughts below. Like if this resonated with you, and subscribe for more reflections that help you come back to yourself. I'll see you in the next reflection. Thanks for watching.